Hi guys.
Hello.
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 Hey. I'm trying here to make my chat visible. Yeah, so good morning again. I see Ian and Maria and Itai, Asu, Set, and yeah, Tuche. And you guys know we are streaming, right? Yeah, so we are streaming the things over YouTube. So probably it is important to mention that this is a YouTube stream as well. And I wanted to ask if it is all right for you all.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I'm with me.
Cool.
I'm from you as well.
Yeah, so we'll have like 4 good hours to enjoy the conversation and developing of the idea for this workshop. It's quite a long time probably, but we are not rushing through. I think it's also about production of the things and about sharing our ideas and somehow trying to wrap up the Zoom conversation or workshop as a whole. So perhaps it would be good if we all together will write on our chat who we are and what we do. So this doesn't necessarily need to be the reality. I think this is the reality the focus is today. So our roles for today, I guess it would be the most important because we will always refer to you and we always think of you as you write. So if you guys would write 2 sentences, 2 3 sentences, perhaps 4 or 5, it is not that important, but it would be cool if you could write in the chat who you are. So I will do as well. So we have this you and I, you and me project altogether, like a participatory event, workshop, and a exhibition or installation was developed with me and Maria, who is sitting here. I see.
Hello, everybody.
It was a big pleasure to work with you guys, and Ian, who was supporting with NeuroThinks, our brain functionality and TDCS. He will tell a little bit about that later. But probably it is a good start to play video. I think it is condensed and is saying briefly about what is the project about, right? So I will try to do it like full screen, sharing screen. And perhaps it will be clear. If not, we can always play again or try to understand a little bit more.
The participatory event, You and I, You and Me, invites the audience to imagine the future. Humans, computing machines, and various types of hybrids share the space they live in. Senses are altered. Some are inextricably linked to computing devices. Electricity is used to control the space and beings living in it.
Some are inextricably linked to computing devices. Electricity is used to control the space and beings living in it. In such a scenario, humans take on the responsibility of reshaping social ties to avoid being controlled by corporations and machines. Since electricity is ubiquitous, it is used to experience the environment. This perception follows the idea that electricity is a common language for all organisms. During the participatory event, the audience is invited to explore the environment by wearing jewelry, shoes, and headwear.
This beautiful jewelry pieces.
They are produced by different artists, and this part is produced by the Icelandic artist Helga Mogensen that lives in Iceland, and then she's been working there and sending it to Vilnius, and these are the Vilnius-based.
These guys were made in Vilnius. I think it is called Juvelyrikos Oaze, Mantas ir Simona.
The jewelry pieces question the abilities of humans to generate electric current and, while using it, experience the environment. All pieces in the collection hold a small LED powered by the human body. Being very sensitive, the flashing of the LED depends on humidity, temperature, contact to the body, and other parameters that affect the components used for the circuit. headwear was inspired by research on brain-to-brain interfaces and questions the boundaries of empathy. Aesthetically, the project refers to traditional headwear and the role of it in signaling human identity to others. Technically, on one hand, it scans electrical impulses of the brain, and on the other, brain stimulation is triggered by passing DC current. The shoes use excess human heat, which is turned into electricity to generate sound. While being affected by the ambient temperature, light, and movement, the shoes suggest rethinking a human's relationship with nature. At the same time, the collection critiques the hype surrounding renewable energy, which often pollutes the environment just as much as the energy obtained from burning gas or coal.
So yeah, this is a short introduction to the video. And in the end, we had also, in the end of the videos, we had a brief introduction to the objects we are discussing. And I think we should also watch all the videos of the objects. This is the collection, which is the collection of variables, collections of variables, which are having different perspective, of course. And I think it's a lot about design, and it's a lot about our casual uh, lives. So I think it is very important to get into details and see how these objects are built and what they do. So in case of rings, so we will have visual interpretation of what we are and what surrounds us. And shoes have some sonic interpretation, and the headwear has brain-to-brain interface through the electricity. So I guess it is important to watch slowly, start thinking about what these objects do. I will start playing with jewelry pieces. So that was jewelry piece, and now I will show shoes. So that was shoes, and the remaining one is about the headwear. We'll try to find it on my computer and share. So I guess we have now all the videos played, and probably there are many questions. So what I was thinking, probably it would be good to introduce each object more in detail, or the collection of objects more in detail. And I would like to introduce them together with Maria. So maybe Maria, you can also uh, tell from your position how you see and what these objects are doing. So probably we can start explaining or introducing them from jewelry as we have been playing them. So jewelry, as I mentioned briefly already, it have small LED, the yellow LED here, like one piece of ring, and it works as a human body here works as a battery, and ring reacts to the outside world. So somehow probably would be impact of temperature, humidity, like how it is attached to the body, and other parameters, features. It has two different electrodes inside. So one, or well, not necessarily inside. So one electrode is the ring itself, so it's silver, and another electrode is zinc, at least in this case. So it makes the thing looking or working like a battery which was discovered by Alessandro Volta like a couple of 100 years ago, like 1790 something, or maybe 1780 something. And yeah, so having those two electrodes, it makes the electrons passing one direction, so like directed electrical stream, like electricity, right? And it is enough of energy being produced to light up LED. So from the human body, we have enough electricity to lit up LED. And it's a kind of chemical reaction as far as I understand. And sometimes the ring or the jewelry pieces would blink faster or not that fast. Depends on different parameters from the environment. It's funny, like the piece I have here, it was blinking very fast like 2 days ago, like zack, 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 zack every second, but now I can't lit it up. So maybe it fell down, it got damaged, but sometimes it really doesn't blink. So for a moment it doesn't blink, but there is a video to see how it might blink. So yeah, so this is about the rings and jewelry pieces. Maria, do you have something?
Yes. No, not much besides that. Unfortunately, on the video that you played, I think we couldn't really see it blinking LED, and but everybody should believe us that it blinks.
Yeah, perhaps the stream was the video which was broadcast here on Zoom probably was not that good quality. But yeah, the better quality is also on the documentation website.
I wanted to add something for people that haven't seen the pieces, haven't seen the exhibitions, because we had already 2 exhibitions and participatory events where people could try it on. Like the entire collection consists not only of rings, but as well of bracelets, as well as necklaces, and like the rings that goes on several fingers and etc. So it's much more variety that is present there than what we see on the video.
Right. So it is not only about rings; it's also necklaces and wrists, bracelets, which have LED on it and would function when while wearing. Kind of, yeah, an idea to think of electricity, how it is produced, and yeah, what it is basically. And it's at the same time to feel, because I just noticed that wearing for a longer time a ring, you would start feeling kind of uncomforted a little bit, but perhaps it's also about the metals which attach to the body. So after like wearing the ring like half an hour, so I would take it off because the feeling is not that good. And I'm not so sure if it is about the uh, chemical reaction between zinc and silver, or it is just about the metals which are attached to the body. Sometimes, yeah, it doesn't need to be probably this kind of reaction. It is just only the the reaction probably between the one of the metals and the body itself, which makes you a little bit uncomfortable if wearing some metals. At least for me, maybe for others not that much. All right, so this is about jewelry, visual kind of representation of the environment, and we can start describing a little bit the shoes. So the shoes we have been producing also they function without a battery, and electricity is being generated from the difference between body temperature and outside temperature. So having two kind of different temperatures, this kind of tense generates electricity. The Peltier element, so-called, is making it happen. Again, it produces not that much electricity, but it produces enough electricity to generate a sound or to convert the electricity to sound. And in the shoes, we have uh, two sensors, including Peltier element would be three sensors, because Peltier element is also reacting to the temperature differences between the humans and the outside, the environment. Plus, they have the light sensor, and they have also the horizontality sensor. I don't know now how it is called, but altogether it makes the sound kind of stereo, and it changes depending on how you walk, how much of light is, and yeah, uh, how uh, how heel is cold or hot, because sometimes it wouldn't produce electricity if it is not attached to the your heel attached to the shoe. So there are many parameters to play around, and therefore the shoes would function as a synthesizer, and you would be able to listen what music, what sound is being generated yeah, during the time. So it's a kind of all the time ongoing choreography and understanding of the outside world through the sound. Right? Anything to add, Maria?
No, besides that, yes, again, I mean, maybe we could ask Luis to play some pictures if that would be possible, so we would see more of the different shoes. But anyway, like there's like different forms and different sizes and etc. Like that's just different. Like it kind of as well like this aluminium plate that is this crucial element for the difference of temperatures. The work is like of different size and different form.
Right, yeah. So the documentation of the shoes is also on the website I was sharing yesterday, or Indra was sharing through Swapcard. So I guess, yeah, you guys were able to see, or you can always refer to this link. Maybe I can also add it in here. here is some documentation where more pieces are available in photos. So it's not only videos, but also like images. All right, so the headwear. The headwear is the most complicated part, of course, as we have been working much longer on that part. Not necessarily much longer. I'm not so sure which part took more time, but it was really, really challenging to get this thing running. The headwear includes two chips, actually. One chip would sense, let's say, the electromagnetic waves of the brain, so EEG kind of style. And the other chip would be transmitting electricity through the brain. It is called TDCS. We will have a little bit more about that function from Ian. I hope he will be able to tell a little bit more. But to make things short for now, it is a kind of communication between humans, and probably humans could be replaced with non-humans, like animals, right? The species which have a brain, or would be possible to use not necessarily brain. If you would attach electrodes to any other organism which is a little bit bigger, let's say, so we will be able to pick up electromagnetic signal. And on the other hand, you would be able to send electromagnetic waves, so electricity. And this kind of the idea which brought us to the main concept behind, I guess, the project, which is a new language to be used between different species. So we don't use the language, human language, and we don't only talk between us humans, but this kind of technique could enable kind of discussion or kind of communication between different species. And I think this is the most interesting part in this collection, which is based on electricity as a language, like really interactive thing to communicate between different species. So yeah, more I would say animals like humans and non-humans, but it would be possible to imagine attaching the electrodes to plants, for example, or even the colonies of bacteria, and at the same time sending the impulses which come from the humans or our species again. This kind of interaction then functions through the internet, through the local net, as we did in participatory then, but practically it would be possible to make this communication available through the internet, which is adding another layer, let's say, on all the conceptual part, and letting us imagine the futures, the communication between different species. So we kind of position ourselves, humans, not that up on the pyramid, or not necessarily, possibly, but somewhere in the middle. And this might be interesting part. Of course, there's a lot about design, but maybe you, Maria, would like to talk about the identity and the headwears we have been making.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I will share a little bit of the story how we started discussing the project and this particular part of the headwear in general, that we were discussing how this TDCS method is used and what is it used for, that is being used for like treating depression and chronic pain, and decrease antisocial behavior, and as well like to increase empathic experience. And then we were speaking about that, then we would like to, then the materials we use is an interesting question. Like we were speaking about, if all of this in a way could be seen as a soothing practice, then the materials should be as well quite soft and warm. And this is affected, of course, the design of the pieces. So all of the pieces are made out of natural silk, of different types of silk. And they all have like lining, and they all are quilted, and they all literally just kind of hugging your head and sometimes shoulders, like it depends on the different pieces have different forms. So, and they're very warm. Inside of this silk, um, sometimes they look like helmets. We have the silicone cap that keeps the dry electrodes on places where they should be. And then we, on the outside, we have the pockets where all the technical like details are being hidden. And while we were speaking about, so what is the aesthetics, where we're going, we had a very clear idea that we don't want to go towards the quite already established tech look, not for the kind of a sci-fi aesthetics, but quite the opposite. And so we started looking at the the medieval headwear and the role of headwear, especially like if we speak about the heritage that we have from that time is mostly painting. And the history of painting, there's a special term which is called like hat language, because the like headwear or headgear, as it's called sometimes, was used to signal the social belonging, political views, like all kind of different information of the wearer to the viewers. So that's why then we look at these portraits, it's quite often we see this overwhelming presence of the headwear that is like proportionally taking so much space in the painting. So we were thinking, okay, so in a way, I mean, the head here used to be a messenger of different concepts. And in the history, you know, of arts and today in our case as well. The other moment that we were discussing with Mindig is that it's very important for us not to hide anything. So it's very obvious for the person that tries the piece on how exactly it's being done and how it functions. So we decided to use the wires and the cables that goes through like from seven electrodes to the tiny processors. We wanted to make them visible. That's why, I mean, you can see on the video that we turned the cables into the embroidery. And the most, so funnily enough, the most usual colors that you can, like the most simple like cables you can get in any kind of a tech shop, is the most kind of traditional colors that have been used for embroidery as well without the history, and as well like across basically like all continents from the Lapland to the like South Africa, which is as well quite interesting. Yes, so that's aesthetics part.
All right, thanks, Maria. And I guess, yeah, we still need to talk about this functionality. And now we need help from Ian, because this is really something much more sophisticated as the aesthetics, probably. So yeah, Ian, it would be a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm here to tell everyone that the technical side of this is, actually kind of possible. That the idea of communicating electricity does have a basis in reality. And I think one thing else to note is that the way the headwear is designed is already incorporating this. So Maria, you said that when you put on a headset, it's really hugging the skull. And that's incredibly important, actually, because what we're talking about is really establishing electrical contact with what's in the skull. So if I presume that I'm wearing one of these headsets, right, and we kind of trace around my skull. something like this, right? So inside my skull, there'll be my brain, hopefully, which if I'm looking in the same direction, will kind of have a shape like this, looking from the outside. This is where it connects to the spine. There's going to be another brain area at the bottom here, but what we're really talking about is we're talking about the outermost part and the surface part, which is called the cortex. And so in each part of the cortex, in every millimeter, there's going to be neurons, right? So it's a biological structure which has cells, you know, and a cell you kind of know has got a cell body and a nucleus. But in the brain and in the neurons, actually these cells are really special because they have these kind of long connections here, whereas this is sending a signal down here, and another cell is going to send a signal in through its connection here, which this will connect to there, like that. All right, I hope you can see despite the reflection, but this essentially tells us that actually you've got almost like a wire structure in the cellular structure of the brain, right? And so you could compare it to like, here's a plug, here's a wire, and here's a plug. And then electricity is going to be traveling down from one direction to the other. And what happens when electricity is traveling is that it's going to generate an electrical field, right? You're going to have a positive side, say, and a negative side, and you're going to generate actually a field that propagates through space that isn't just through the wire, but in the area around it. And if you have lots of wires next to each other, right, that field's going to be stronger because the electrical fields from each individual wire sum up. And this summation of parallel wires, that's really important when we think about the brain, because we can't measure, or at least the way that we're doing it in humans, right, is we're putting an electrode on the surface of the skull and trying to measure what's going on inside the brain. And that distance is so far, and these neurons are so tiny that it only really works because in this outer surface of the brain, there's a lot of parallel wires, right? The 50,000 neurons per millimeter in the brain, a lot of them really run parallel and produce these fields that then we can pick up with electrodes. So measuring these fields from big populations of neurons, that's called EEG. And if we try to do the opposite, if we put an electrode on here and we have another electrode on the other side, say, and we're generating a field, here's positive and here's negative between these two, then also we're looking at these parallel wires in the brain, and we're affecting them actually. We're kind of putting a field around them that affects them. And we know on the principle level how that would work, right? Because it's the same as the wire principle here. If you run a field across the wire, you actually induce a difference in the charge. And in the neuron, what that means is is in the neuron, the relationship between inside of the cell, right, which is going to be negative, and outside of the cell is changed by the field that you're putting on it. So you don't make the neuron fire necessarily, but you change how it acts into a normal situation, right? So you kind of, if a neuron is going to communicate with another neuron at a certain level, you change that level by applying a field. Which means really that if I'm measuring something, or say I'm stimulating something at the back here where I've drawn this, we don't entirely know what happens and why it happens, but we do know that some crazy things happen. Like, for example, the neurons in this area, which is the visual area, they're now going to, maybe if I apply enough energy, do something crazy like you see a flash, even though there's no light. That's called a phosphene, and that's sort of the most concrete, I think, example of what you could communicate between brains. Let's say I was measuring the visual area in one brain, and there was a flash of light, and that would produce in a population of neurons an electrical pulse. and I measure that, and then time it with then in a different brain, I add a pulse, and that can produce a sensation of light. And that's basically the premise for being able to do brain-to-brain communication, is based really on the fact that there are these parallel wires in the brain. They do have something to do with brain communication. It's the base, electricity is the basic premise of how the brain works. And if I'm manipulating them on a population level, I can get things to happen. So we don't quite know how it works, but we know it can help people in depressive situations. And for that, you could stimulate the neurons in the front here, right? And put a field into this area. The idea of phosphine works. And the one caveat is that in people whose electrical activity is too high already, that they might experience like a seizure, that if you were to put a dangerous amount of current in, you could induce that as well. And so actually this project's really exciting because, well, first of all, they kind of know how not to do it dangerously. And also they're really exploring what you can do with something that isn't really even that explored in science. We know maybe the mechanism, but this kind of idea of function is really interesting. I think that's enough of a primer to the brain maybe and how it works. Keep in mind that all of this is happening just in this part of the brain. And so the question of what's going on in the rest of the brain, well, we'll have to figure that out another time.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, it is not clear what that makes to our brains. And at some point you came up with a question which was very interesting for me. If you learn something, what do you unlearn? So it's also very interesting. So yeah, letting electricity through the brain is not necessarily positive. We don't know what it makes in the end, right? But yeah, so here the kind of coming to the point to wrap up the introduction to the project, and I think now we will move to the intensive communication interaction part between us. So therefore, they have a couple of questions prepared for you guys to think of and to react. And these questions I will be posting to the Zoom chat. And I think we should keep the Zoom chat on, and we could try reflecting these questions on Zoom while typing. Sometimes typing is not helpful, I know, so therefore we are always able to use Zoom. So depending on how you feel, you can interact. Sometimes if you will say, I want to share the screen, so go ahead, lift your hand and I will give you admin rights to share the screen if needed. But otherwise, I would try encouraging you guys to chat on Zoom. So we could follow all the conversations and all the ideas coming up and refer to them later. Then we'll move to another a kind of creative part of the workshop. So yeah. I have 4 questions, and probably I would copy and paste them one by one, so we could react, all of us react to the questions immediately and not at the same time to all the questions. So it would make more sense. So I guess these, or as far as I can imagine, these questions could encourage us to think about the initial points we had while developing this project, and probably it will help us to imagine what could be in the future. At least this is the setting I was trying to come up with, but not necessarily future. We live in present, and the present could sound like a future. So the first question is here. What is your environment. And I invite you all guys to start chatting, and probably I will just at some point will copy and paste our question here in the chat.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We're talking about communicating with plants and neurons. There's actually the whole terminology for neurons. These branches, these are the same as these branches here. So the comparison between plants and the brain has always kind of been there. It's great that we're picking it up.
while using it, experience the environment. All pieces in the collection hold a small LED powered by the human body. Being very sensitive, the flashing of the LED depends on humidity, temperature, contact to the body, and other parameters that affect the components used for the circuit. The headwear was inspired by research on brain-to-brain interfaces and questions the boundaries of empathy. Aesthetically, the project refers to traditional headwear and the role of it in signaling human identity to others. Technically, on one hand it scans electrical impulses of the brain, and on the other, brain stimulation is triggered by passing DC current. The shoes use excess human heat, which is turned into electricity to generate sound. While being affected by the ambient temperature, light, and movement, the shoes suggest rethinking a human's relationship with nature. At the same time, the collection critiques the hype surrounding renewable energy, which often pollutes the environment just as much as the energy obtained from burning gas or coal.
Like you would receive and send your brain activity with the somebody you pair with the phone. So these ones, they go
The
to
participatory event, You and I, You and Me, invites the audience to imagine the future.
and those
Humans, computing
these
machines,
are
and
just
various types of hybrids share the space they live in. Senses are altered. Some are inextricably linked to computing devices. Electricity is used to control the space and beings living in it. In such a scenario, humans take on the responsibility of reshaping social ties to avoid being controlled by corporations and machines. Since electricity is ubiquitous, it is used to experience the environment. This perception follows the idea that electricity is a common language for all organisms. During the participatory event, the audience is invited to explore the environment by wearing jewelry, shoes, and headwear.
This beautiful jewelry pieces. And yeah.
they are produced by different artists, and this part is produced by the Icelandic artist Helge Mogensen that lives in Iceland, and then she's been working there and sending it to Vilnius. And these are the
These
Vilnius
guys,
based.
these guys were made in Vilnius. I think it is called Juvelyrikos Oaze, Mantas ir Simona.
The jewelry pieces question the abilities of humans to generate electric current and, while using it, experience the environment. All pieces in the collection hold a small LED powered by the human body. Being very sensitive, the flashing of the LED depends on humidity, temperature, contact to the body, and other parameters that affect the components used for the circuit. The headwear was inspired by research on brain-to-brain interfaces and questions the boundaries of empathy. Aesthetically, the project refers to traditional headwear and the role of it in signaling human identity to others. Technically, on one hand it scans electrical impulses of the brain, and on the other, brain stimulation is triggered by passing DC current. The shoes use excess human heat, which is turned into electricity to generate sound. While being affected by the ambient temperature, light, and movement, the shoes suggest rethinking a human's relationship with nature. At the same time, the collection critiques the hype surrounding renewable energy, which often pollutes the environment just as much as the energy obtained from burning gas or coal. audience to imagine the future. Humans, computing machines, and various types of hybrids share the space they live in. Senses are altered. Some are inextricably linked to computing devices. Electricity is used to control the space and beings living in it. In such a scenario, humans take on the responsibility of reshaping social ties to avoid being controlled by corporations and machines.
I think it's very cool what we type, and we get into many different layers actually. Yeah, amazing what comes up. So yeah, I want to read again and again all the chat and to try to come up with something to summarize somehow. But that would take, for me, I guess, more than 1 hour. But the idea is actually, yeah, to try to move to another, yet another part of this whole workshop, I guess, which would be thinking and probably doing something which would make the communication forms happen. Visual, sonic, text, probably. So the idea we had while starting this workshop, we should go and have some time, like yeah, coffee break or something like for 1 hour. And during this hour, we will be streaming on YouTube the participatory event we had in Vilnius 1 month ago or something. And during this time, I suggest, or I would suggest to come up with something you would like to share or wrap up all the conversation, and from your position, try to communicate your understanding, and let's see what comes up. If all these understandings are having something to do, uh, uh, yeah, with our understandings. That is my suggestion, but I don't know. Maria, maybe Ian, maybe you have comments. Itai, of course, Giada, Giada, Madagascar, Palm, and Tucha. All of you are very welcome to think what could be next. Yeah, in terms of this 1 hour wrapping up session, thinking, writing, doing photos, making videos, recording sounds of Facebook. For example, yeah, it's so beautiful. Machine interacts with us as well. So yeah, what do you think? What should we do during the next 1 hour?
Could just try to talk to some plants. Go put your fingers in some pots and think about it.
Do you know the
But I could,
term plant neurology? Yeah, there are a couple of scientists who would write and speak about plant neurology, and that's what you basically have shown to us while you were coming up with brain functionality and pointing to the plant.
Yeah. I mean, there are also I know there's one concrete neural circuit in the plant, and the Venus flytrap. It uses electricity to sense when there's an insect and then to close. So that's a kind of neural circuit that plants already have.
Could you point to the reference? It's very interesting. Maybe a link or something, or
Sure.
an image circuit. How would it function? Because one of my students, like 5 years ago or something, he would have this idea for the installation, and I think it didn't function in the end, what he did, or as far as I remember, but what you say, it should function, so that would be very cool. Or do you mean analog, like a plant would try to catch the insect?
I guess what it oh wow. I guess what it is the form of communication, the medium is really interesting in that case. So you know, for neurons, they have electrical signaling in our brain, and that's a form of communication. And the most plant communication, from what I understand, is kind of chemical, or you know, using a medium like a fungus, like fungus cells, and then they send signals. And so the medium of using electricity to communicate, you find a circuit in the Venus flytrap, and that's I suppose why you would call it maybe a neural circuit, because it's the evolution of electricity in a biological system to do that. But I actually don't know much about the circuit, so I'll go read some papers and let you know.
Yeah, but anyway, it would be very interesting to read about this Venus circuit or whatever you call it. Yeah, you pointed to chemical communication in plants, but I guess it's electrochemical. Both have to do with communication, because if you would try measuring electrical activity, you will always get in living organisms like 0.02 volts of electrical charge. So yeah, the chemistry or the electricity, as we know, is produced from the idea of volta is chemistry, a chemical reaction, of course, between different chemical components, but it produces electrical charge.
Yeah, you can. I think you can distinguish a bit also by the coding scheme maybe for the communication. So a lot of electrochemical communication or chemical communication might happen with a gradient over time, right? So you can have like something is putting out a chemical into the environment, and another thing is sensing it, and then there'll be like a slow change over time, which will be a form of communication. But in neural communication, you have kind of a period of silence, and then you have this spike, and that is more like Morse code then maybe, rather than you having some kind of slower gradual thing. You really have like a tiny bit of information that's sent in one go, and then the code is how those bits are related. And the Venus flytrap, I know, produces these bits, which is action potential, you call it, which makes it really exciting from a more biological point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So yeah, looking forward to reading more about that. Yeah, all parameters could be translated into electrical charge, converted, I guess. Yeah, it's about also conductivity, right, and resistance, and of course electrons, interaction between protons and electrons, neutrons. All right, so yeah, Tucha, maybe you have a comment. What could we do during the next hour? Where we should concentrate on how we should wrap up maybe what was happening.
Maybe we can come back in an hour and then just continue discussing, and then think about what we have been discussing. And then if anyone has any sketches, any images, any sound to share, that would be lovely to just put another layer to our chat.
Cool. So let's try to wrap up, including our environment, what we see, how we communicate, with whom we want to communicate, and what we want to communicate. Yeah. And we come back at 2 p.m. sharp. Or? Oh, yeah. We keep
Vilnius, 1 p.m. Berlin,
right.
or whatever time. It's, let's say, 1 hour later.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we keep the chat open, and if we have in between ideas, we share the ideas on the chat. All right. Giada, Itai, Aitai.
1,07. Tai ne mano.
Because if we had to do so we don't hear what they hear.
Really?
Yeah, so they just would hear the sound from the would generate electricity. And then electricity is converted to the sound. That's the sound of I don't know.
Čia yra nuo kūno skleidžiama nuo šilumos elektros srovė.
Dabar žiūrime, užmiršta.
Čia turi prisispausti ir tada reikėtų prietemo žiūrėti, yra geltona lemputė, kuri pradeda žybsėti. Tai tiesiog šiek tiek labiau prisispauskite ir taip padarykite, matysite, kaip reiškia, kad žybsėti. Čia būtent kaip ir įrodymas, hipotezė, kad žmogaus kūnas gali elektros srovę tiesiog perduoti ir yra būtent tam papuošalė.
Čia dar?
Turi tik prisiliesti prie odos žiebti.
Jo, žybsti.
Aha, žybsi. Noriu pabandyti.
Didelis ir mažas.
Pabandysiu iš karto čia.
Žybsti jo. Fotkinai?
Aha.
Čia. Prašau.
It's not heat, it's one hand.
Taip.
I have no potatoes.
Ir po garaliko pradeda mirksėti šitą lamputę.
Geltona?
Jo. Tas užsikrauna šitą bateriją ir tada jau atiduoda švietėjimą į tą lamputę.
Are you going to light?
A little bit. Very tiny.
Maybe I don't have any blood flow.
I mean, it's not the day, you know.
Oh, no, I got a little bit of flat here.
Norėtųsi, kad atsidaryti galima organizuoti šitą. Dvigubą.
Stipriau kažkas buvo?
Nevienodai, kad liestų. Galit su savo pirštais tiesiog paliesti metalą, nes čia ne metalas, čia kitoks. Ir kai jūs su savo pirštais paliečia, tai tada užsikrauna šitą.
Kai paliečia kūną?
Va, matot? Viskas jau jums gerai.
Gal aš be energijos?
Nežinau, čia reikia užsidėti?
Taip, čia reikia užsidėti, kad pamatyti rezultatą. Jeigu norite.
Ir pamatyti ar išgirsti, nes...
Ne, čia yra pamatyti.
Aha. Ir kur reikia žiūrėti?
Šitą bateriją ir tada
Parodo kažkas?
Čia.
Gali nežibėti, gali žibėti?
Turėtų žibėti nuo kiekvieno.
Aha, čia gal pamatysime pirštą.
Galit, nėra skirtumo, vis tiek liečiasi jūsų pirštai prie metalo. Jūs galite va tai paliesti su savo rankom, va tai ir užsikrauti.
Kad suspausti. Aha, dabar pradėjo kažkas žibėti.
Tai čia jau jūsų šviesa.
Tai čia pagal pulsą gal kažkaip, ne?
Ne, čia nuo jūsų gaminasi kūno elektra.
Tai nuo savo.
Ne, šipsėti. Kita.
Tikna labai veikia, bet...
Veikia, žinokit, veikia. Tik tai šiek tiek reikia palaukti.
Čia buvo didelis vyriausybė, tai už tai.
Keliomis kryptimis per smegenis ir taip galima pajusti kitus žmones per internetą.
Čia tarp dviejų žmonių ar visi, kurie su šitom
Ne,
kepurėm
per dviejų reikia prisijungti resoftas, per telefoną galim prisijungti.
Aš dabar tik atėjau. Gal tu man pasakysi, ką čia reikia daryti?
Ne, atsakyk.
Tas nėra ilgas.
Ja galima matuotis, kad man didelė žiūrėti.
Matosi šiek tiek. Matau.
Aš esmę supratau, nes pasiskaičiau.
Taip. Tai jo, tai žodžiu, mes esam kaip bulvės. Gaminam mes irgi elektros energijos pakankamai, kad galima būtų įsižiebti netgi ledą.
Jo, aš mačiau YouTube mečiai gamina elektros energiją ir čia galima lemputę.
Tai jo, tai lygiai tas pats ir čia, tai prasme visi gyvi organizmai kažkiek tai elektros srovės pagamina, yra ten 0,4 voltų ar kažkas, ką gali tempti mūsų organizmai. Bet kai prideda elektrodus, tai tada padarai kryptinį elektros judėjimą, DC, ir tada gali įžiebti ledą. Tai ta prasme, elektra nieko kažkokia nėra tokia labai tolima, nesuvokiama. Mes visi komunikuojame elektrą, nes visos ląstelės komunikuoja plius minus, yra tie visi krūviai, kurie tada padeda informacijai pereiti iš ląstelės į ląstelę. Druskų trūksta, tai yra siunčiamas druskos, kažkokia tai komunikacija vyksta.
Tai čia viduje, o tarp jūsų ir manęs net irgi vyksta, ta neverbalinė.
Taip. Čia yra visur elektros kažkokie tai krūviai, nes jeigu viską galvotumėm elektronų ten lygyje, tai jiems nesvarbu, čia yra organizmas, neorganizmas, jie tiesiog visur juda. Eksperimentą galime
Gerai, dabar tau. Ant kažkokios platesnės. Štai kaip užsidėjai. Kažkas kitas. Užsispausti. Jisai toks, tiesiog žiedas. Reikia laukti, kad jisai įsižiebtų. Jisai turėtų, kažkaip... Tai reiškia, kad aš neturiu,
Ne. Jūsų pirščiukas neapsėmė viso to metalo. Jūs galite su savo pirštais nesvarbu atiduoti.
Tiesiog reikėtų
palaikyti visą.
Aš tik išrašau.
Čia įrankė? Reikia liestus labiau.
Gali šonus suspausti, tada įsivaizduoji. Taip. Svarbu, turbūt, kad metalas šiltų. Štai gali pamatyti, man reikia.
Galim kokį sukubą duoti. Su glūkstu.
Kaip iš viso jisai tiesiog. Ai, pamiršt. Vau. Štai kaip jis veikia.
Dabar jau. labai nuskaitytas, bet pamatysit, kad tikrai. Su vat savo kitais pirštais, vat šitus vat, čia nuskaityti metalai. So,
If you have no brain, it doesn't work.
I didn't think about that. But yeah, basically these were used to, these are similar in the way that people used to treat depression, like
Electrostimulus.
like stimulus, yeah. Yes, exactly. So at the moment there's no electricity current in the hat, but we're not allowed to make it.
But the heat generates the electricity.
No, there's actually generators in the battery right here. I don't want to like plug it too much, but there's here. They're both here, and that's how you can connect it to an app here, to a phone. So basically, when you look around, I'll put this down right here for a second. If you look around, you can see these little numbers. So these are like different hats. It's all right. These ones. So these are basically other people wearing the hats. So when we connect to another hat, we can feel like a certain part of the head stimulated.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's how, well, it depends on the activity of the brain on the other person. If the person is calm, one particular part is activated. If it's not, then another one.
Try this.
Absolute performance. I believe we're not allowed to do it right now because people. Yes, the guy in the green hat.
I work with this.
Oh, you do?
Can we ask him? Can I try this?
Sure, you can ask.
Come with me.
Okay.
Can I try this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you are very welcome.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the phone is for this one because mine is a different hat. Another girl.
So the fact is, it's better not to use the phone, and it's better not to use electricity because it's a little bit tricky. You need a doctor.
I need what?
A doctor who would be supervising.
Oh, I thought you said boxers. I was wearing.
No, doctor. Because I was burning already.
Oh, that's where the stars came from.
Exactly.
So, okay. No, he came to my studio and I thought, what are you doing? Is it? Okay, well, can I at least get a photograph of this on?
Yes.
And send to Austria?
Yeah.
My charming and always lovely wife.
So yeah, you need to learn how to put it on.
Okay, you.
It's easier for you to put it like at first, like here.
Okay.
I will put it on. Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, wait.
Let me make a picture.
Oh,
Yeah, sure. Of course.
oh, because this is impossible to explain without a photo.
It is, yeah. Oh, you look amazing. Yes. And another one? Gorgeous.
Okay, and No stars?
No stars, no burns. It's
Oh
all good.
no, it was so funny when he came to my studio earlier this week. Yes, you know, it's this, what do they use in India? You know what I'm talking about. They do.
Like,
Yeah. And I thought, you know, somebody's doing this on your head.
yeah. Oh, that's fun.
Well, so you got checked out by a doctor and my name is Mark Ekstrand. I'm a glass artist. Well, no, I've had a home here for 15 years in Panavicius, and up until 2 years ago, I also had a home.
Yes. Headwear. Of course, I'm so sorry.
Galiu pasimatuos?
Žinoma.
Ar dėsite?
Pasakoju, kaip čia viskas veikia?
Žinau, kaip veikia.
Taip, aš taip pasakysiu.
Taip teisingai uždėta.
Taip.
Надо всем, я пробовала.
O kairiam irgi? Kairiam.
Для фотосессии. Но надо нам сделать...
Ir turėtume, jeigu va taip paliestume, tai jaustume prieš dešinio antakio, kad iškelį
Так не тяни сейчас, не тяни. Не тяни.
Galiu pasakyti, kad aš labai norėjau šitą.
Taip. Ai, jo. Palauk. Taip.
Would you like to try?
Oh, hey.
Yeah? Then, I mean, at the moment, as you know, the electricity is not passing. So if you want
not passing?
electricity,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's like off.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but if you would like to try later, there is a possibility where you need to sign a consent form, like that you agree and you understand the side effects and all that. So it's
What side effects?
no, it's possible. Like as you know,
okay.
with anything
Of
that
course.
in any way interfere with your senses, you just need to know what it would be.
Oh,
It shouldn't be anything, but
Of
you know,
course.
even painkiller or anything. So these are there's a 3 different circuits, and the one is to scan your brain activities, EEG, and the other 2 are for the 2 those that one is responsible for calming down, and it's used in like treating depression, there's like pain killing, and etc. And the other one is for excitement, basically. So like in the functioning mode, like you would receive and send your brain activity with somebody you pair with the phone.
Nice.
So these ones, they go to this frontal part of your forehead, right in the middle, and those they need to touch your bones on the leg over there.
Okay, even if it's turned down.
Yeah, it's
up?
just like if you would like to
Oh, okay.
more authentic experience. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Do you know?
The artist. Yes.
Do you know Steve Miller? From Iceland, one artist. Like artist from
Yeah,
Iceland.
yeah.
He's doing such a sound like lunge or hairs or organs in his body. And he
Национальное поле оценить, и ты знаешь, тебе здороваться, отойти. Это как нормальная собака чувствует себя.
Tai jinai kinta arba kryptis kinta nuo to, kokia būsena yra kitas žmogaus, kuris yra prisijungęs prie tavęs, turi susijungęs kažką.
Ja.
Tada elektros srovė teka vienaip arba kitaip ir tu jauti tas tiksėjimą ir elektros srovė.
I think this is all very interesting. But my son, he works for Facebook. He's got a degree from MIT.
I like it. I mean, I had no idea kad čia tiek daug įdomių. Matysiu, aš galvoju, kad čia bus kaip koncertas.
Ai, ne? Tai man atrodo, po šito performanso lauke
Bet aš, kad važiuoju pas Mindaugo, kai buvau praeitą kartą Berlyne, jis man supažindino, atsakė,
Tai aš taip norėčiau, kad čia
papasakot savo ypatingo, kas įdomu, tu klausi.
Čia planuosi kadrą padaryti. Mindaugas sakysi, ir aš papuoliau.
Ir Adolfas papuolė. Ir Adolfas su Gyčiu. Čia visus patikrins. Yra veido atpažinimo funkcija, sudėsi į šitą programą ir iškart nustatys, kiek kartų kelių eismo taisyklės pažeidėt, kiek nesumokėtų baudų turit, išsiaiškins visas nuodėmes.
Aš 80 eurų sumokėjau už greitį.
80 už greitį. Čia normaliai.
Švenčionėlį važiavau. Nepajutau, kad buvo ženklas pastatytas.
Būna visiems.
Ir tėvai
Čia turi būti šalčio. Bet dabar per mažai šalčio, ne?
Nu tai paskui jau padarysim. Ir va čia generuoja po to tą energiją. Ir per tą laidelę eina čia. Čia va tas va. Čia yra va šviesos aplinkos sensorius. Jisai turi
šviesą. Dar kaip pažiūrėti, kaip kokių karoliukų, ne karoliukų, kažkokie specialų.
Tai čia turbūt tie lydiniai tie visokie.
Bet kokie įdomus, tikrai va, jie spalvota tokia.
Viskas dar spalvota, priderinta, ne?
Ne, labai.
Visi tie tokie faktoriai, kurie įtakoja tą garsą.
Bet jis lengvas. Jis palyginti labai lengvas, tas nėra sunkus.
Ir fainai, dovanojai Gitanas sako, kad negirdi paukščiukų tada, bet girdi kitą garsą, kuris
tau, kaip sakau, susisiekė su visą tą kitų garsų.
Pajusti aplinką. Kitokią, galbūt kažkam jo. Kažkam tai gal.
Nes matai, čia kodėl neši tokia kaip kamštinė medžiaga, ne?
Bet aš sakau, man labai patinka, kad jis va, jis neatrodo didelis toks masinis, bet jisai visiškai nesunkus.
Čia iš tikrųjų taip pat buvo žiūrėtojai į senuosius batus iš Maroko. Ten, kaip kepurės, iš Namai. Dabar manau, kad palauk. Bet
ne, aš tiesiog įkišu pažiūrėti, palaikyti įdomu.
Mano energija, mano bakterijos gali įtašoti
savo bakterijų.
Aš galvoju, tai jis visai. Štai tokius
Na va. Tai va, ir vaikštai, va, dabar imk ausinės. Dabar aišku.
Bet kaip įdomu, bet ta prasme, va. Neišsikoju. Reikia, matai, reikia, kad kūnui būtų daugiau šalčio. Bet supranti, man toks yra, kad padė jaučiasi kažkoks vėsumas, tau nejaučiasi, kur tas burbuliukas yra.
Vis tiek jisai vėsesnis negu, sakysim, tavo kūnas
Aš sakau, tai va visiškai lengvas tas batas, jaučiu, kad su jais vaikščiai, tai visai patogu būtų. Tikrai taip. Tikrai. Aš kažkaip tikėjausi, kad jie labai sunkus yra tokie, žinai, kadangi masyvas didelis, bet jie visiškai, va, sakau, lengvi, fantastika. Nori pasimatuot? Mergaitė. Ką?
Nori pasimatuot?
Duosi man kitą batą?
Galiu duoti kitą batą.
Tuoj man bus kitą batą. Pasilaikysiu žvaigždį. Galės eiti.
Va, šilta dar.
Bet ne karšta tam bate.
Nes oda, žinai, laisvė.
Tau gal padės? Biškiu užsirišau.
Bet sakau, žinok, jie va visiškai va. Visiškai nesu. Vat kuo jokios, žinok, visai patogu. Tikrai. O dar jeigu girdi kažką, tai iš vis fantastika.
Tai sakė, galim tai pasirašyti. Pasižiūrė, šitą ne, tai reikia.
Aš tai visai norėčiau, žinokit. Nu tai dabar, žinai, nesinori trumpai žmogus užsiėmęs, vis tiek manau, kad susitiksim dar kitų laikų. Jo, visai fainai, žinok, Solė. Tai suprantu, kad, žinok, čia patyrimas geras, galėtų išbandyti su žmonėm, ta prasme, kad pajusti kitokį potyrį.
Gal ir paukščiukų tada klausinės norėtų?
Ne, žinok, iš tikrųjų norėtųsi girdėti va tą kitą garsą, ne tik paukščiukų. Fainai, liuk, žinok, labai įdomu. Palaikyk dabar šitus. Aš iššoksiu iš batų.
Well, you know, golly, I finished it.
Consequence, like we don't know all the skills.
It's sound more than rather than music.
You know, these days, sound music, it's hard to know what.
You're right, you're right. Yeah, but you know, here it's too warm because it should be, the environment should be lower than 20. So only then the body generates electricity.
Ah. Well, you can go snow dancing in February.
Yeah. No, but someone went down to get some ice. Ice.
Oh, yeah. Try ice.
We will try. Girdisi? Ne?
Žiūrėk, Vilma, saulė papulsta.
Bet šiek drąsus vaikas nebijo vaikščioti.
Wooden shoes like long time ago, like the first ones. It looks like
Yeah, but never was such a high.
Yeah, that's it.
Definitely, I would like. Definitely. Yes. I believe he was telling a lot of things when he was preparing for that exhibition. Not really doing those.
With kids.
Tragen so eine Maske.
So 1 hour is gone that quick. So quick. Hmm. Maybe I have one photo. So what is our plan actually now? How do you pronounce your name, Gyada? Jada? Jayada? Jayada? You are muted. I don't know. I don't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, it's Jada.
Jada. Hi, Jada.
Hello.
People are coming to the exhibition. So it's really interactive.
Oh, wow.
But it's not yet the time. I'm not so sure why they came in, but it's open. So people can come in.
So is that the case that people can wear your jewels or, the devices that you make?
Yeah, they do during the participatory event. If you were watching YouTube stream, people were interacting with the jewelry pieces. If you didn't watch the stream now, you will be able to watch it later. And the stream is, I will send you the link. Here's the link to the streams. Also, it includes the one from us from today.
Okay.
So somewhere in the middle, perhaps, of the streamed participatory event, you will see how people interact with it. But yeah, as soon as you put on the finger, it starts blinking or not starts blinking. So it depends on different factors, like perhaps humidity, conductiveness of the skin, the touch, how you touch the electrodes, because these are inside two electrodes, like zinc and silver. It functions like Volta battery, basically, like a battery, a chemical reaction, basically. So yeah, tell me what you guys were thinking while you were having a break. Typing, I think, is much better, but it depends. It's up to you. Tucha, Jada, and other people whom I don't see, but maybe they hear me. I will share my screen. idea of this is open space for personal. And the idea of this is open space for personal. So yeah, I was thinking a lot about observation being not communication, and that's what I came up with, of course. But I believe it depends on the setting. If two people would observe each other, right? So I guess it would become a communication.
But I think that what makes the difference is a response, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Often we don't feel the response, but yeah, if the communication is between plant and me, let's say I have here plant, two plants actually. So one small and one big. Don't respond to me being here nearby, but it depends on plants. If I would have another type of plant, how it is called now, those very sensitive ones. So they would close their leaves immediately, feeling me coming in. So I observe them with my sight, and they observe me through different senses, electromagnetic waves. So it is a kind of response, yeah, in this case, yeah. It's different from sight and sight, from two observations, but it would be probably a response as well.
In that case, you can say that for you is a response because well, you can understand the signal that is being launched by the plant.
Exactly, yeah, because you would think differently if you would see different reaction.
But for me, the question is like also respect to what we were saying before. Well, sometimes we don't understand a signal. So maybe it's been emitted, it's been given, but then we cannot recognize it.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. It's about sensing the world and recognizing and being able to pick up the meanings, I guess. Yeah, if one actor is taking place in this observation, so it is not much about communication, it is about reflection, I guess. But if there are two observers, that becomes interesting.
So if you put it like that, then you're mostly talking about interface, right? Like that if you have two systems, they need something that they can share, even if it's, one sharing on this level and the other sharing on the other level. Like, the plant communicates one thing and then you respond by giving it water. There can be two different interfaces, but there needs to be this overlap. So, and I guess the thing is that maybe you can't communicate with anything that you don't already perceive as wanting to interface with.
But this, I guess, interface could be any media, right? Starting with McLuhan, media is the message. It could be air, it could be electricity, it could be, I don't know, dust. It could be a ring, an object, like real object, interface.
Few minutes left before your workshop goes on for a bit longer. 10 minutes?
10 minutes left.
Cool. Pressure. Yeah.
Andrew Patterson is doing residency here and he's cooking something. So he's asking how long our workshop is still going on. So yeah, I guess we need to start wrapping up things. Wrapping. This is Andrew Patterson, who is doing residency, and this is another story being told. Now he's cooking something, doing participatory event today. Oh, nice. Yeah, these are our people hanging around.
Okay.